Shadrick, Mike Dempsey, and Brian Sexton have all the news and information to get you ready for today's game.
Into the end zone, touchdown!
The Publix Tailgate Show is brought to you by the University of Florida, Farah and Farah, Yucatan Guacamole, Baptist Health, and by EverBank. The Publix Tailgate Show starts right now.
You know, there's a line from a country song that says something about a melody bringing back a memory, and hearing that music from the early days of the Jaguars certainly brings it back. It's Throwback Sunday. I say that because I don't see a day. Tom Coughlin's going into the Pride. They're wearing throwback uniforms. The legends are here, so I declare it Throwback Sunday in Jacksonville. Brian Sexton with you from the Hyundai Studios at EverBank Stadium in Jacksonville. Mike Dempsey alongside. The first hour of the Publix Tailgate Show is brought to you by Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Jaguars and Colts, 1 o'clock. Hello, Mike. It's a busy Throwback Sunday.
Good morning, Brian. I'm glad you've declared it Throwback Sunday. I think a lot of people are probably referring to it as that.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so. Throwback unis alone would be enough reason, but hearkening back with Tom Coughlin going to the Pride, a lot of the original Jags showed up for him.
Man, I wasn't trying to take too much credit for it, but what the heck, right?
It's all good.
The title is Throwback Sunday. It's presented, by the way, by Baptist Health, changing healthcare for good. A lot of things happening today. We mentioned them already. The legends are here. Tom Coughlin goes in the Pride. Josh Hines-Allen, by the way, cleared the concussion protocol, so the expectation is he'll play today. And it's Trevor Lawrence's 25th birthday.
Yeah, it is his 25th birthday, so it's a good day to turn the page on what's been a disappointing first month of the season and look forward to the remainder of this year and the beginning of Trevor Lawrence's long tenure here as a Jaguar quarterback. And hopefully he continues his success against this Indianapolis Colts team. Of all teams, this is the one team the Jags have matched up the best with over the last maybe 10 years.
And the Colts are a team coming in beat up. Their starting quarterback is not likely to play today. We'll find that out at about 11:30. Their starting running back is out today. They're missing plenty of players on the defensive side. So perhaps they can get this thing rolling. But let's go to the top stories, and here they go. Doug Peterson talked this week about the adversity his team has faced at 0-4. He stays connected to the locker room and believes that it's dealing with the adversity and working its way through that 0-4 start to the season.
Just several of them today. I mean, they see it just like we see it. I mean, it's one of the things that I'll always do with the players is one that I'm always going to have their back and always going to be up front with them. So, I have to support them, and at the same time, I got to show them. It's easy for us as coaches to criticize the negative. Even as reporters, it's easy to criticize the negative, right? It's hard to find the positive when things are bad. I mean, it's just kind of human nature. I personally try to find the good in everything, because if I don't, then I'm always the Debbie Downer. I'm always the negative one, and I don't want to be the negative one. I will still hold them accountable. I will still hold my coaches accountable. I'll hold myself accountable. But at the same time, I better come Wednesday make them feel like they could run through that wall, right? That's my job. That's part of my job. So I don't necessarily back away. I don't necessarily have to raise my voice and yell and scream. But I think you can get your message across where they understand where you're coming from and what we need to do moving forward.
I think one of the things, Brian, when the Jags had success in 2022 that the players talked about was that Doug Peterson was the same guy, every day showing up. And players all throughout time, since, we've been covering this team the same amount of time for 3 decades, and they all say the same thing. You want a guy who's consistent, who's not going to be too high, too low. There was a lot of talk this week about has Doug Peterson lost the locker room? He emphatically denied that. His leaders in the locker room emphatically denied that as well. I'm sure there are a few players who aren't happy with their role, and that's normal in any locker room, and it gets exacerbated when you start 0-4.
Well, since we're throwing it back, right, let's remind people that in 1996, Tom Coughlin lost the locker room. At 4-7, they cut Andre Rison. It seemed like it was going away, and he got it back because they started winning. And they went on that 7-game run to the AFC Championship game. He got the locker room back. So a lot can change in a very short period of time. Winning being the common denominator there. How about hearing from the quarterback? He says it's a long and challenging week when you don't have a win to make things feel complete.
Hardest part is, dealing with it Sunday and not getting the result you want. And just the next couple of days, like you're thinking about every situation. You're thinking about, one play here or there that could have changed the game. Obviously 3 of our 4 losses have been right there, and it comes down to a couple plays. And so that's hard to kind of get over that hump and then to get back. Like now Wednesday, we've finally flushed it, and now we're ready to prepare for Indy, and we have a great plan put together that we've started. Obviously it's going to grow as the week goes on, but that's the hard, I think, part of the week to get through is just because you're just sick. You put all the time in for these games, and then when you don't perform and you don't get the result you wanted, it's a bad feeling, especially when you put the time in.
It's obvious, but they need a win desperately, Brian. I mean, it's taking longer and longer. If you're not getting over it until Wednesday, the whole 24-hour rule in the NFL, they love to say, we are able to compartmentalize. We put this behind us really quickly. I think it's got to be tough when you've had as many losses as they've had in games where you feel like you've had a great opportunity and maybe even gave it away. Certainly the Buffalo game was not that case, but there's a feeling the Jags could easily be 3-1 right now.
They have 3 fourth-quarter losses, right? 3 opportunities to win games in the fourth quarter, which is where 90% of the games in the NFL are decided, by 8 points or less in the fourth quarter. That can't help but ding your confidence. You get there and you start thinking, oh, boy, here we go again. I wonder if they can get it done.
Yeah, what are we lacking? What are we not doing? You start wondering when something goes wrong, is this the beginning of it falling apart? But it's been something different pretty much every single game. And that's been disappointing, too, because if there's one thing you can point to and say, we've got to fix this and we'll be better, it would seem like that's an easier path to getting back on the right track. But, with the Jags, it's been something different seemingly every drive.
So left tackle Cam Robinson did not get off to a good start this season. Did not play that well against Miami, against the Browns, or the Bills. In fact, he had his worst game that I can recall against the Bills. But last Sunday in Houston, he had his best game in a long time, and both tackles really played well. And Cam talked this week about confidence, said it's not a feeling. Confidence is a result.
I've been around a while now, and I've been through that phase of my career where a performance can kind of get you down and kind of get you. The confidence has to come from the work. The confidence comes from the work that you put in and just being confident and knowing that you're doing and that you have done everything the right way. And you just kind of put your head down and keep working and trust that you're going to start to get the results that you've been working for.
I understand in theory, but if you're not getting those results, I think it's easy to get your confidence shaken, right? And you're right. He had not played well, Cam Robinson in particular. The tackles as a pair have not played well or up to what we expected of them this season. Hopefully last week's a little bit of an indication that things are starting to turn around.
Also interesting that Cam talked, without really even being prompted, about the confidence that they still have in Trevor Lawrence, who has not played very well this year. He's had moments where he's flashed and you've said, there it is, but it hasn't been consistent. He said both sides of the ball, still very much behind the young quarterback. The quarterback needs to hear that.
Yeah, well, and he does need to hear that, and he needs to have the support of his teammates. Look, he's not going anywhere. They're committed to this guy, for better or worse, for quite a long time. It's not just a week-to-week kind of situation here. This is a year-to-year proposition with Trevor Lawrence, and he missed opportunities last week that were there. And that's, we've critiqued the play calling and all these different things in big moments, but there were a couple of huge plays to be had on the field last week, and all he has to do is hit his receiver in stride, and the Jags probably win that football game. So, when you see that, it's easy to point to number 16 as being a part of the problem.
Defense gets a couple players back today. Devin Lloyd will be back. Darnell Savage, who was a key part of their first half against Miami, who hasn't played since that opening day game in South Florida, is back as well. Talked to Chad Muma, who played a lot last week, and the defense did enough with 5 straight stops in the second half to give the Jaguars a chance to win that ball game. He says coming out of Houston, the defense is confident they're getting better.
It's definitely, I think, one thing about our defense is, after our loss last week, there's still more that, we're always trying to strive for. And, you go into last week, you're preparing, and you don't get the results that you want to. You got to do even more this week, and that's what we're doing this week. We're getting together as a unit, watching more film, together to get that communication down. And, I just think every single day we're going out there and we're still attacking it, and we're still fighting that fight to, be better so we do eventually win that game, finish the game, really is what it comes down to.
And one of his cohorts in the linebacking core, Ventrell Miller, had a really nice performance for himself last week, Brian. But you were talking about Foye Oluokun, Devin Lloyd, both in the linebacking core, Tyson Campbell, Darnell Savage in the secondary. You lose Josh Allen mid-game with the concussion, and the pass rush has not been what we'd hoped it would be early in the season. So it's honestly the fact that they kind of collapsed against Buffalo, but that's the only game in which they did, is probably a testament to them rising above some bad circumstances that they found themselves in this year.
And if they could get some help from the defense, right? I'm sorry. If the defense could get some help from the offense, maybe they'd be able to get more of a pass rush if they were playing with a lead, which they haven't done much of.
If you're forcing 5 straight punts like they did last week, it'd be nice to mix in a couple offensive touchdowns in that time.
Without a doubt. By the way, the defense has plenty of areas they can get better. The pass rush, as Mike just mentioned, is one. The other's turnovers. And Ryan asked about that. Ryan Nielsen was asked about that and said they're working on it.
We have to start doing it. We have to. I mean, we're talking about it. We're coaching and we're practicing it. Our players are talking about it. Those type of things. And there's a fine balance of not pressing too hard, but staying positive with it and stay in the course. That's the thing. We need to stay positive, stay the course. Continue to build this the right way. Year one. This is our coming up on our 4th game together. And just build the foundation and stay positive and stay the course with what we're doing.
I understand that answer, and over the course of a season, you have to get better and build on your successes. But this is a team that felt like we're ready to go right now, right? And with Ryan Nielsen coming in, we expected this defense to be pretty good right out of the gate.
Well, we saw signs of it in training camp in the preseason.
Exactly. So the slow progression, that sounds like a team that's almost hey, we're working on getting better, and this is a team that should be playing at a higher level than that, or at least have higher expectations than that.
Their expectations are being reset at 0-4, and obviously he is trying to get them back on track. Well, more sound from the week coming up in the second hour of the Publix Tailgate Show at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Hey, Jags fans, are you Duval enough to become the Jaguars 2024 NFL Jaguars Fan of the Year and earn a trip to Super Bowl 59? Visit NFL.com/Fan of the Year and nominate someone today. Time now for Come On Somebody as E to the T gets things riled up.
Courage, bravery, strength, and character can all be summed up with one word. Grit.
Grit.
Grit. And if my memory serves me well, a wise man once said,
I suggest we adopt the term grit.
I suggest we adopt the term grit. Truer words could not have been spoken. It was 2014, 10 years ago, since the Indianapolis Colts last won here in the 904. Duval! And let's not let that change today. No, because today is a very special day. Not only is it 16's birthday, happy birthday, Trev, but today, the Godfather, Tom Coughlin, gets inducted into the Pride, joining Wayne and Dolores Weaver.
You can't be a successful sports franchise without great partnerships and great community support.
Hall of Famer Tony Boselli.
I had to get this in just one time.
Duval! Mark Brunell and Jimmy Smith.
Brunell on the fake. Touchdown to Jimmy Smith.
And of course, everyone's favorite and soon-to-be Hall of Famer, Fred Taylor. Brock Marion still chasing that man. So what's it gonna be, fellas? We're 0-4, and we're back at the bank, facing a divisional rival who hasn't beaten us in Jacksonville in 10 years. Trev, go ahead and treat yourself to a nice birthday gift. And to the Godfather, Tom Coughlin, congratulations. You've earned your keep. Lead these boys with some inspiration.
Grit is guts. It's resilience. It's industriousness. It's tenacity. Grit is the ability to focus, to stay determined, to stay optimistic in the face of a challenge, and simply work harder than the next guy.
Come on, somebody.
Let's get gritty.
Pure radio genius.
Gotta love it.
That was amazing.
And I don't know if I was aware of that grit was all those things, including industrious. I wasn't sure. I remember Tom saying, let's adopt the term grit, but I don't remember him laying it out letter for letter what that meant to him.
Let me tell you, I've spent some time with him in the last couple of weeks getting ready for today. His energy level at 78, he could still do it. He loves it. He is passionate about this franchise, and to hear him talking like that, get you fired up.
Hopefully it'll rub off on the team today.
Hopefully it does. All right, folks, we've got a lot more coming up on the Publix Tailgate Show, including...
I'd rather not go another game of feeling like we're close. I'd rather just go out there and get it done.
One of the most thoughtful and well-spoken Jaguars joins us to talk about fighting through difficulty. We'll hear from wide receiver Christian Kirk coming up in this week's Baptist Health Player interview. But next, CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco's perspective. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Facing cancer takes a lot of determination, strength, and support. And you'll get it all at Baptist MD Anderson Cancer Center. Determination from world-renowned doctors, giving you specialized treatment with cutting-edge technology and research. Strength and support from a dedicated team, caring for you completely, during and after treatment. Don't face cancer with anything less than the team at Baptist MD Anderson. Appointments available at baptistmdanderson.com.
Hey fans, it's Tyson Campbell, cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This season, your game day is getting even tastier with Al's Pizza in the stadium. And every time we get a pick, you'll score. If the Jaguars get one interception, you'll enjoy buy one, get one free pizza at any Al's Pizza location Monday through Thursday after the home game. 2 interceptions, a free dessert. And 3 interceptions, that's a free appetizer. Just tell them you want the Jags pick. Up your game and get your Al's Pizza at the game or any of their locations.
We've spent a lot of time in our homes.
I'm on a Zoom call.
Dinner's ready.
But we've learned that when we love our home, it loves us right back. Now you can keep that love going when you install energy-efficient natural gas appliances and earn up to $1,925 in cash rebates. You'll love endless hot water, faster drying and cooking times, and ongoing savings and comfort. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
The Publix Tailgate Show continues. Brian and Mike with you from the Hyundai Studios in the Miller Electric Center. 1 o'clock kickoff for the Colts and Jaguars here at EverBank Stadium on Throwback Sunday in Jacksonville. And speaking of throwbacks, Pete Prisco was there in the early days. From the moment that the franchise was awarded to Tom Coughlin being hired. And those two guys had some epic battles through the years as Pete was looking for the story and Tom was trying to control it. So even though he's a daily presence for a lot of people in the media world and weekly for us here, He's a throwback, too.
Yeah, I think there were plenty of times when they'd like to have thrown each other back in press conferences and try to get a new one, but it didn't work that way. And one of the big stories of the week, Brian, as we talked about already, at least mentioned, was the story about did Doug Peterson lose the locker room here in Jacksonville? And I started off with Pete. Look, there are vehement denials again from Doug Peterson and his players, including Trevor Lawrence, who thought it was ridiculous. But these are the kind of things that pop up, and I mentioned that to Pete, that when you're 0-4, you just have to deal with this kind of story.
No, it clearly tells you that somebody out there is saying something about the locker room, and that's never a good thing, Mike, when you have leaks in your locker room where people aren't happy with what's going on. So, look, I've been around the business a long time. There's probably one or two guys that are saying that, and the rest say, that's not true. But when there's one or two, it could turn into 2 or 4 and turn into 4 of 8, and then you got a real major problem. So when you're 0-4, nothing's surprising.
Right. I would imagine, Pete, in any NFL locker room of 53 players, that there are always going to be a few guys disgruntled either with their playing time or whatever. And when you're winning, you're smart enough to keep that to yourself, right? And it's only when you're losing that, those one or two voices can get amplified. So I don't think this is an exclusive Jaguar problem. I don't think it's just exclusive to teams that are struggling like this.
No, you're always going to have disgruntled players. If there's a wide receiver not getting the ball, he's going to complain. If they don't like the run game not being used enough, you're going to complain. And so, yeah, but 0-4 makes it bubble to the surface. If you're 4-0, you probably wouldn't hear this type of thing. But when you're 0-4, that's exactly what you start to hear.
All right, when you're 0-4, it's easy to focus on the negatives, but let's try to flip it around a little bit. We're a quarter way into the season. It doesn't mean everyone is playing terribly on this football team. So give me a guy who has stood out to you on the offensive side this year.
Brian Thomas. And I thought he would be a big-time player, and once he really gets the route running part of it down, and he's getting better at it, he's going to be special. I think you saw that, on the ball that Trevor missed last week, the deep ball. Did a nice stutter and go. He's getting better running those type of routes. I think we've seen him go across the middle a little bit more on those crossers. I think as he gets more comfortable with the route tree and his ability to break down and run routes, I think this kid's going to be special. That is a number one wide receiver. And when I say a number one wide receiver, I mean one of those top guys. He has the potential to be in that same group.
Yeah, that top 15 type where you don't question he'd be a number one on almost any team in the National Football League. I agree with you. And if Trevor Lawrence hits him on what would have been a long touchdown last week, that would have been 2 in the game. And I think that would have been kind of the national coming out party for Brian Thomas. So still plenty to come. What about on the defensive side of the football?
Defensively, it's hard to find out any really good things. When I look at it, I think, the young players, Miller went in and played well. Monteric Brown has played really well when he's been there, particularly last week. I think, and look, Josh Hines out. He's been a good player. He just hasn't been getting home with the sack production, but he's still been a dominant player in terms of the run and his ability to put pressure on the quarterback. So I think that's the good. I think the young guys, I think that's the most impressive thing because you don't expect that. They stepped in and Miller made a lot of plays in the run game. He wasn't great in pass coverage, but that's to be expected. He's going to learn it. And Brown was outstanding last week for a guy that was, asked to go in there and play against that offense. So I think those two guys stood out a little bit.
Has Ventrell Miller shown you enough that you want to say he needs to be on the field more even when everybody's healthy in that linebacking core?
One game doesn't make you do that. This week we'll see. I want to see more from him. But I do think that he's a guy that flashes speed, flashes a thump when he gets in the run game, and he will improve in the coverage as he plays more. So yeah, and then it goes back to the old thing, Mike. If he deserves the start, then you made a major mistake on the other guy.
Oh, all right, Pete. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. Trevor Lawrence has played well against the Colts. So the Jags, as a team, have played well against the Colts, more so than any other team in recent years, but. What is the advice you would give to Trevor? What do you hope that he is doing to kind of put this 0-4 start and not a particularly good performance from himself individually last week behind him?
Relax. And, all offseason and all late last season and all anybody talked about was what? The turnovers. Got to quit turning the ball over. How many times has he turned the ball over this year? Once.
Yeah.
But that's because he's not playing free and loose. He's playing tight. And I think when he plays tight, he has a tendency to sail passes. I think he has a tendency to pass on some opportunities down the field. And I think that's the biggest problem. He needs to just go out there and say, look, I got paid. That doesn't need to hang over my head. It's there. No matter what I do, it's going to be there. and just go play. I think that's the biggest problem for him right now. He's not just going out there playing, and he's a long strider as a quarterback. When you're a long strider, Mike, tendency to sail the football. Your head comes down, you sail the football, and we saw that twice last week. So he's got to work on his mechanics, but more than anything, he's got to play free and loose and relax. You can't play tight.
Well, and as we've talked about, this is the team that the Jags have had the most recent success against. The Colts just don't come into Jacksonville and win, but every year is different, Pete. How do you expect the game to go today?
No, I think there's something there, and I think that matters. I mean, it's kind of like this thing. Until you prove you can do it, then it's always going to be in the back of the minds of the Colts. And desperation is an amazing thing in the NFL, and when you're desperate in front of your home fans, it's even more so. So I think Jacksonville will find a way to continue that streak and beat the Colts and get their first victory.
All right, Tom Coughlin goes into the pride of the Jaguars at halftime today. Pete, just give us a thought on the early architect of this franchise.
Well, it won't be the first honor he gets because he's going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, too. The guy was a great coach, and I spent a lot of my early years in this business with him, covering him, getting berated by him, and learning a lot of football from him. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Tom Coughlin. I wish I didn't have to work. I wish I could be there because it's going to be a great day. I know there's going to be a lot of alums there, and it's a fantastic thing for him. And I truly, truly have nothing but the utmost respect for Tom Coughlin.
And I think that's something you hear echoed from everybody who's dealt with Tom Coughlin. At times, you don't love necessarily dealing with him in the moment because he is an intense guy. And former players have said that all the time, Brian, but I don't know any who don't respect what he brought to the table, the consistency, and what he did for so many people's careers.
He made everybody want to be at their best. I can tell you firsthand. I hosted his radio show for 9 years, and on Tuesday nights, I wanted to be Thursday nights back then. I wanted to make sure I had everything buttoned up because if I didn't, he was going to let me know. So in the smallest things, like his radio show, let alone the big things, like his offense or his defense or his special teams, he made you want to be at your best because you didn't want to not be. So that was the story of Tom Coughlin, who goes into the Ring of Honor today as the next member of the pride of the Jaguars. Well, we heard from Pete about the future number one wide receiver of the Jaguars in Brian Thomas Jr. I caught up this week with a guy who's the number one guy right now, and that's Christian Kirk. And I asked him how he's leveraging the current adversity, the adverse situation this team finds itself in at 0-4 for success.
Adversity creates opportunity, and it's our job as humans, or we have the ability to control what we think about those opportunities and what we think about adversity. And so, if we take it as a negative opportunity, then that's only going to retract us from where we want to go. But if we put thoughts and create it as a positive opportunity, then now you have room to be able to grow, not only as a person, but, in this case, as a team. And so I just think of adversity as an opportunity. Every aspect creates another opportunity, and so that's the way I approach it.
It's pretty clear how guys train their bodies. How do you train your mind? How do you work on that mindset that you just shared with us?
Yeah, I have somebody that I work with who's very near and dear to me. He's my secret weapon and keeps me at baseline. And as long as I'm at baseline, then nothing else can really shake me. So we do a lot of stuff that helps, kind of prepare my mind and train my mind. And I've done a lot of work to get it here. And I just do everything that I can to also share with my teammates and help use it because it's very beneficial in what we do.
Is that sometimes the differentiator between good and great, especially in elite athletes?
100%, because I think especially at this level, skill is never a question. Everybody in this locker room they're 1%ers when it comes to skill. It's usually that's the common denominator, what differentiates good to great. So I would say definitely just the mental aspect.
And on the field, you're asked crazy questions, and the one I hear the most is, how close are you? Do you have a sense of that, or is that something that you only feel in the moment?
I guess it's something you only really feel in the moment, but close doesn't win you anything in this league. Winning football games does, so I'd rather not go another game of feeling like we're close. I'd rather just go out there and get it done.
Obviously, you believe that one win would just do something dramatic for this football team.
I believe that it would add more confidence. It would, help guys feel a sense of reward for all the work that we've put in, because at times, especially when you go on a losing streak, the work that you put in, all week long and even through training camp, you're searching for a little bit of reward for it to pay off. And so I think that's what it would provide for us.
One final thought. I see a logo on your helmet that it's very meaningful to me since I've been here for 30 years. What does it mean to a player to put that on and to play in the throwbacks this week?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it before. I think it's really cool to just be able to, pay homage, especially to, this organization. And, with it being some sort of a younger, organization, but all that it's been through, and to just, see the people that have paved the way for us to be here as well, I think it's really cool. And it's really cool to see how much it's evolved. And, love seeing how much people care, about the organization and, Duval County in itself. And so I think that just it accumulates all of it together, and just love what it represents.
Last week in Houston, they'll obviously need him in the game today, especially if it's raining. And it sounds like it's really raining right now.
Well, to think that when he signed here, the story was, the Jaguars have blown the wide receiver market. I mean, his contract is such a bargain in today's NFL. It's absurd. And, yes, Gus Bradley's defense wants to keep everything in front.
Yes.
And Christian Kirk's going to work that underneath stuff. He's been coming on the last couple of weeks. And not only Kirk, but Brian Thomas Jr., I saw a stat, second in expected yards per route run this year against cover 3 defense. So, again, weather is going to be a factor potentially today, but those guys are going to be a bigger factor.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes, Hall of Famer Tony Boselli and Jeff Lageman join us from the broadcast booth. But up next.
The reason is, and I've always conducted myself this way, Brian, to a fault, okay? To a fault. And that is that I really believed in my heart and soul that this was my team. I really did.
Part of my visit with Tom Coughlin on the occasion of his induction into the pride of the Jaguars. The Jaguars and Colts are coming up at 1 o'clock, and this is the Publix Tailgate Show. You're listening on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959, serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Touchdown at Jaguars away games when you fly nonstop from Jacksonville International Airport. Join the Jaguars in Miami and Houston. Watch them win in Philly, Detroit, Nashville, and Las Vegas. All the other Jaguars games are just one short connection away. And if airport parking has you stressed, be sure to visit the Jax Airport website before traveling to the terminal. On it, you'll find information about the status of on-airport parking in real time. See if your favorite areas are available or if you need to call an audible. Visit flyjax.com for more information.
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at EverBank Stadium because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 70 years of authentic Southern Pit Barbecue. We are the local barbecue joint in BBQval for generations of people in Jacksonville. Go to bonosbarbq.com to learn more or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Brooks Rehabilitation is proud to be the official rehabilitation partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are here for them, and we are here for you. Ranked #1 physical rehabilitation hospital in Florida by U.S. News and World Report, our playbook is individualized treatment and exceptional care to get you back to living your life. Brooks has cutting-edge technology and therapy solutions in every care setting, treating sports injury, orthopedics, brain, spinal injuries, and more. Go beyond your expectations with Brooks Rehabilitation.
The creamiest, dreamiest, soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. The milkshakes and the sundaes and the cones are such a treat. Look out for the ice cream stand, enjoy it from your seat.
The creamiest, dreamiest, soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For a refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. S-O-F-T-E-E, Mr. Softy.
The Publix Tailgate Show rolls along through Throwback Sunday. Brian Sexton, Mike Dempsey in the Hyundai Studios for a 1 o'clock kickoff between the Jaguars and the Colts. And it's time for our weekly commentary from Rick Ballou.
Congratulations, Tom Coughlin, of course, today inducted into the pride of the Jaguars. Tom means so much to so many for a variety of reasons. For me, it's pretty simple. Born and raised in Boston, he was the coach of BC, in a town that really didn't care about college football. I mean, it's a pro town. BC was on page 8 of the Boston Globe. All of this changed in 1993 when I was in Tallahassee. I went to the game of the century in South Bend, Indiana. Number 1, Florida State. Number 2, Notre Dame. And like all the big games for Florida State, they lost. A week later, Tom Coughlin took BC into South Bend and shook up the college football world by pulling off the upset, pushing the way for Florida State's Bobby Bowden to win his first national title. It was 2 years later. I met Tom for the first time in 1995, still working in Tallahassee. I would call Duval my home full-time in 1996. As a member of the old media here in Jacksonville, I can proudly say I am the only one who covered Bobby Bowden daily and then Tom Coughlin. Think of the analogies you can make there. You have no idea what it was like being a young kid going from one to the other. Coughlin was tough. He was gruff, intimidating. And then there were times where, let's face it, he did not appreciate the questions I did ask. I left after the 2000 AFC Championship game when the Jaguars lost to the Titans. I went and worked in Chicago for 7 years, then returned back here to Duval right before the football season in 2006. It was then that I learned about the real Tom Coughlin and his work with the J Fund. His tireless and selfless effort to provide kids and their families stricken with cancer is his biggest achievement. The J Fund has provided millions of dollars to families who continue to deal with tragedy, and Tom Coughlin is a huge part of that. Everyone knows that Tom won 2 Super Bowls and built the franchise here in Jacksonville. More need to know about his role with the J Fund. Have a great day, Tom.
You can catch Rick on Into the Night with Rick Ballou weeknights from 6 to 8 on 1010 XL. Well, speaking of Tom, that's where we're going next. He enters the pride of the Jaguars today, and I wonder if anyone who wasn't here in the building with him 30 years ago can fully understand the job of building the Jaguars. Very different than anyone who followed him, so much bigger than simply adding players and coaches. And we sat down last week to revisit the biggest challenge of his career.
The idea that I would take the job in February of 94 and not play till 95, which may have been a detriment to, at one point there were a lot of people interested in this job. And but the way that I set it up, the way we hired, of course, you needed personnel because you had to get going on that right away. Right. So that was there. I brought 5 coaches with me, as you know, and we conducted ourselves as if we were playing in 94. We even did in the fall, you remember, we did game plans. We had a schedule. We made up a schedule, and we had game plans. So organizationally, I knew what we had to do, when we had to do it, and how we would point toward that first. But, I mean, the ability to communicate, and I thought about this a lot when we were going to get together, the ability to communicate to the people that came with us as to what was in front of them was very, very important, because I often think for a minute this way. I lost my quarterback, so I don't have her. The one that really should be honored is Judy. So she's married to a football coach who he's over here for 2 years, over here for 2 years, he's over here. But in those times, you moved and you went to work because you had your team, or you were formulating your team or whatever, but you were doing that. Well, you've got to multiply that by a little bit, maybe by as many as 3 in terms of the amount of time that I had to devote to the job.
Yeah.
And, God bless her. We rented a place while the Marsh Landing house was being built, and Brian and Katie were, of course, and Kate were the two kids still at home. So, she navigated it, incredibly well because she's a great person. She's a great friend to everybody. You name it. But the point I'm making is people who came here had to know what was coming because, you start from scratch, and every once in a while I do have to slap myself. This is the greatest expansion franchise in the history of the NFL in terms of success, and there's probably 200 people who directly can take credit for that. And when I'm receiving the award,
it's for all of you.
It will be recognized. That name might be up there, but it represents 200 people. You're one of them.
So it's funny you say that because, and there's a couple of us who are still here involved in the franchise.
There's
and
four of
us, as we walk the halls, we still feel your presence, because the way that you had to go about it, you were so intently focused. I always marveled at your ability to be right where your feet were at, because clearly with everything else you had to do, you could have been in 17 different places.
Yeah, sure.
That sense of purpose, Coach, is the thing I think, the residual that you left here when you left in 2002.
Well, hopefully. I think one of the good things that I heard, and it refers to what you're talking about, is when I came back in 17, and Lageman said, there's a little pep in people's step now that this guy's back around.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really an interesting comment, because I've been gone a long time.
But because people need, I believe this in all walks of life, and you're also a leadership expert because you have done this your whole life. People need someone to set the course, which you did from the very early days here. And, football's complicated, right? You were here, you started this, you left in 2002, you came back in 17, you left a couple years later. This place clearly means so much to you. And by the way, your high school field's named after you. You're in the Giants Ring of Honor. You've got Super Bowl rings. Someday the Hall of Fame will put you in, and yet this place seems to be just as much a part of you as New York. Am I right on that?
You're right. The reason is, and I've always conducted myself this way, Brian, to a fault, okay? To a fault. And that is that I really believed in my heart and soul that this was my team.
Yeah.
I really did.
You can catch our full conversation, and folks, it is worth it. He talks about the other members of the Pride of the Jaguars, finding Jimmy Smith, trading for Mark Brunell, working out Fred Taylor, and drafting Tony Boselli. Again, available at the official podcast network. You just hear the tone, and it's hard not to smile.
It just takes you back to a different era of Jaguar football when that was all you knew, and fortunately it was, because Tom Coughlin had a plan, and he's right. Not a lot of coaches probably wanted to take over a team that wouldn't play for a year and a half.
Right.
That you're basically parking your coaching career for a season on the sidelines. And, if you don't get off to a great start, you could be out of sight, out of mind in a hurry.
One of the stories he tells is about showing up here the first day for work after being announced. And it was a muddy bog of a parking lot with the trailers. It was a construction site. And he walked to one solo trailer, and he was pointed to a folding table, which is where he was to get started. Very humble beginnings for an NFL franchise, and he remembers it fondly now. But it tells you how far this franchise has come in its 30th NFL season. Well, if you're looking for the MVP of the truck game, folks, check out the Ford F-150. Loaded with impressive capability and game-changing tech, you can dominate work, play, and everything else. Test drive a 2024 F-150 at your local Ford dealer, a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, coming up at 11 o'clock, it's hour 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show. But when we return, Jaguars analyst Jeff Lageman and Hall of Famer Tony Boselli join us from the broadcast booth. The Colts and Jaguars are on deck in Week 5 NFL action. Throwback Sunday in Jacksonville. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips. Delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages. And you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Mr. Chubby's Wings is a whole lot more than just wings. Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Swing by Mr. Chubby's and indulge in the biggest and best wings in town, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow sports fans. With plenty of game day specials and locations on the West Side, Fleming Island, Ponte Vedra Beach, and new this season, EverBank Stadium, they're here for all your game day needs. Mr. Chubby's Wings is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game. Hey Jags fans, Extreme isn't always about heat, it's about flavor. And 505 knows flavor. So wake up those sleepy taste buds with 505's new lineup of premium craft salsa. Powered by the bud-kicking boldness of fire-roasted Hatch Valley chilies, 505 sauces are more than enough to bulk up any simple spread. Ignite your sense of boldness with 505's all-new assortment of fiercely fiery flavors featuring 505's new black bean and corn craft salsa. And of course, 505's award-winning flagship flavor, Southwestern style. Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959. Serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, they total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
If you're facing cancer, you want a dedicated team working for you. At Baptist MD Anderson Cancer Center, we only focus on cancer. And we partner with one of the largest cancer centers in the world. So you'll have a specialized treatment plan created by our experienced and highly trained oncologists and surgeons, collaborating with one of the country's leading cancer centers. Best of all, we're in North Florida, with locations in downtown, Baptist South, and Clay. Appointments at baptistmdanderson.com.
We're back on the Publix Tailgate Show from the Hyundai Studios inside the Miller Electric Center, getting you ready for the Jaguars and Colts. Kickoff at 1 o'clock here in Jacksonville. In today's game, Throwback Sunday is presented by Baptist Health, changing healthcare for good. And time now for the first rounds on us. Jeff Lageman and Tony Boselli join us from the broadcast booth at EverBank Stadium. Guys, it's a rainy Sunday. It's a special Sunday. It's Throwback Sunday. So we're going to have Finding Solutions presented by the University of Florida, the #1 university in the U.S. News and World Report's #1 state for education, with a very specific perspective instead of a problem. You ready?
Okay, ready.
All right. Tell me when you knew that despite the terrible Tom moniker that Tom Coughlin was given, that you were playing for a special coach and somebody that you would appreciate the chance later in life to have been associated with?
You know, for me, Brian, I don't think it was till I was done playing. Because in the midst of it, I mean, it's, you know, Tom was Tom. And it was and you were around. Could be a tough place to play, and it was, you know, obviously highly structured and disciplined, and it was a grind because the guy leading us was grinding. And so I don't know if I really appreciated who he was I knew he was a good man just because we lived in the same neighborhood, spent, you know, time outside of the facility. But I didn't know I'd appreciate him as much as I do now until I got done playing.
Yeah, and for me, I kind of had a little bit of faith in that when I came into town on my free agent visit and I sat across from him when he was in the coaches and everybody was working in the trailers, and we had a one-on-one meeting, just the steely-eyed determination and the look that he had on his face, I said, this is a guy that seems to be committed. And so, I mean, I had a feeling, but then, like Tony, until you saw it and you saw the dedication, but then also the consistency that he had day in and day out, I think that's what really showed me that this is a guy that is a consistently hard worker that is willing to do what it takes to give us the best chance to win week in and week out. And that's all you can ask of a coach. And great respect for him. And the other part that I loved about him, just to add this to it, in the NFL and any sport, you always want to be a leader. But having a coach that's black and white allows you to lead because he cleans up a lot of the trash and allows players to lead without having to take out the trash, so to speak. And that was a joy being a player for Tom Coughlin because we didn't have to police the locker room as leaders, Tony. He kept the locker room the way it should be.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of add to what Jeff said because I think he's dead on. Tom, the best part of playing here, obviously winning and living in Jacksonville, all that, but we had great locker rooms. I mean, we had a great group of guys that were tight and all different. I mean, we leave the building, go everyone do their own thing, like most jobs. But when we were here, there was a camaraderie, and that was built because of Tom, how he did it. We were all on the same page. We all were going in the same direction, and those were fun times. And Jeff's right, because it was so structured, everyone knew what to expect. It was the same every day. You knew where to be. You knew what you had to do your job. I think it allowed us as a team to come together, and in that locker room, we were one. And I give a lot of credit for two things. Both were because of Tom. One, what Jeff said of his discipline, his consistency. Very black and white. This is how we do things. You do things the right way. And two, Tom brought in a certain type of guy that he wanted. And for the most part, and we had a bunch of personalities, but they were guys who loved ball and were going to go do whatever it took to try to win a game.
And tough as nails.
And tough.
And I think that was the one trait that he had to have was toughness. Mentally tough guys, and it was awesome seeing it. And just a little story, Brian. Last night we had a dinner at the Miller Electric Center and former players and Tom. And, Tom's got a really soft spot. He's won 2 Super Bowls elsewhere. But, man, does he have a soft spot for his baby, which is this football team and that 95 team.
Specifically the 95 team.
Absolutely. And when he has a little bit of time to talk, and Brian, you've been there and you've talked to him, when he has a moment to talk, I mean, that's where he gets emotional, and that's where he has a lot of respect was that 95 team. I mean, because it was the very first team, and it was a lot of guys that had to be mentally tough because, I mean, we were an expansion team. But we were in nearly every football game that we had with one exception, and that was a game that was in Detroit, and the reason why I wasn't there. I'm just joking.
Because you were soft.
I was hurt. But, I mean, it was
everyone was tough everyone was tough that week except for Jeff. He saw what was coming. He's like, I'm good.
I ducked out.
I'm good with that one.
I had a bad foot.
It was and the last night was fun. I mean, and my favorite part of the whole night was Tom got up for about 15 minutes and just talked. Told stories about the 95 team.
About the very first days of him being in the organization.
How he got hired.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was cool.
It was fabulous. And he deserves to be on this wall. He, as much as anybody, and maybe more, because of
he's the godfather of this organization.
I would say it differently. Yeah. Godfather's right. He's the architect.
Yeah.
He's the one, and Brian, you remember this because you were here. Nothing happened in this organization without his fingerprints being on it.
Including the coffee. I'll tell you a quick story. And, Brian, you're probably just like going, can you guys shut up?
No.
In 1995, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and it was a death march.
Death march.
I mean, I don't want to compare it to any kind of a real death march or anything like that.
It
People
felt
don't get
like
me wrong.
it.
Was,
felt like it. How about that?
Physically, mentally demanding, and we're in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and I was an early riser, got up, coffee, treatment, workout, stretching, the whole 9 yards, and I was usually one of the first ones in the room, and Tom was always there early as well. And he came to me one day and he said, how are things? And I said, man, the food is fantastic. I said, I can't believe I'm actually gained a little bit of weight with, you killing us every day. And I said, but, there's probably two things that aren't great. And I mentioned something, I can't remember what it was. And I said, the other one, I said, the coffee stinks. I mean, it's terrible. And I swear to God, the next day we literally had like a Starbucks in the cafeteria. He had them completely change all the coffee in that place because he wanted the best for his players.
Yep.
And that was amazing.
All right, guys, fast forward to right now. Jags are 0-4. If you're a player in today's locker room, what kind of answers are you looking for from your head coach, Doug Peterson, to get this thing back on the right track?
And you have 90 seconds.
I will say this. I'll play it back to Tom. And I think you want consistency. You don't want panic. And you don't want, oh, my gosh, the sky is falling, and if we don't go do this, this, and this, it's you're dead. It's almost like, hey, we know how to play the game. We've been in 3 of the 4 very tight games we could have won. Now it's time for us to go make plays. Just go on the field and do what you've practiced, do what you've been trained to do, and go make plays.
And just real quick, I'm going to the equipment guy to get my mudding shoes because
get the right
it's going to
shoes.
be wet out here today.
Yep.
All right, fellas, thank you for the stories. Listen, talking isn't your problem when it comes to something like that. Stopping generally is, so we appreciate you.
Thank you, boys.
Thanks, guys.
All right, have a great broadcast. Well, up next, the second hour of the Publix Tailgate Show. We'll have top stories of the day coming up. Of course, the weather being one of the biggest. Throwback Sunday. The Jaguars getting a little bit healthier in the mix as well. A lot to talk about. Tom Coughlin going into the Pride. The Jaguars and Colts are coming your way at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show, and you're listening to Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Champions are built from the support and encouragement they get from the team around them. No one knows that better than Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr.
As one of the nation's largest pediatric health systems, Nemours Children's Health gives hope to future champions every day to go well beyond their limits. Together, we can redefine children's health. We are Nemours Children's Health.
The kick is up. It's good!
Score winning sub deals this Jaguar season at Firehouse Subs. Receive 50% off on any sub when the Jaguars kick a field goal of 40 yards or more. It's a bold deal for the bold city. Download the Firehouse Subs app for offer details. Redeemable only at participating Jacksonville and Orlando area restaurants. Only available in the Firehouse Subs app.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Hey fans, it's Tyson Campbell, cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This season, your game day is getting even tastier with Al's Pizza in the stadium. And every time we get a pick, you'll score. If the Jaguars get one interception, you'll enjoy buy one, get one free pizza at any Al's Pizza location Monday through Thursday after the home game. 2 interceptions, a free dessert. And 3 interceptions, that's a free appetizer. Just tell them you want the Jags pick. Up your game and get your Al's Pizza at the game or any of their locations.
Headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, CSI Companies partners with leading healthcare and technology organizations nationwide to deliver workforce solutions. CSI prides itself on building meaningful relationships and provides personalized operations to fuel the success of businesses, both big and small. Whether it's finding the right talent for a job or seamlessly managing a project from start to finish, CSI has 3 decades of experience in getting the job done. This is your workforce solutions reimagined. Visit CSICompanies.com.
Welcome to Countdown to Kickoff. JP Shadrick and Mike Dempsey will get you ready for today's game. You'll hear from Jaguars great Fred Taylor and the head coach of your Jacksonville Jaguars, Doug Peterson.
Touchdown, Jacksonville! A pick six!
Countdown to Kickoff is brought to you by the University of Florida, Farah and Farah, Yucatan Guacamole, Baptist Health, and by EverBank. Countdown to Kickoff starts right now.
Welcome to hour number 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. It's week 5, and we're 2 hours away from the Jaguars and Colts. Kickoff on Throwback Sunday here at EverBank Stadium is 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Today's game presented by Baptist Health, changing healthcare for good. Brian Sexton along with Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios at the Miller Electric Center. Pick your topic. There's so many storylines. The rain is one. We're obviously hearing it inside the Miller Electric Center. Throwback Sunday. Tom Coughlin to the Pride. Jaguars get a little healthier on defense. The Indianapolis Colts haven't won here since 2014.
That's the one.
All right, go with it.
That's the one I want. Well, I mean, that's the one I want to hang my hat on because, these things have a way of snowballing. And obviously it's been a decade here since the Colts have been able to come into Jacksonville and win. This is the one team, no matter what state the Jaguars have been in, that they've been able to match up with very well, Brian. And without their starting quarterback, and there's a theory that, it's maybe more dangerous to face Joe Flacco if the pass rush is not getting home. We saw that last year with Cleveland, but no Jonathan Taylor as well. I mean, the Jags just have to find a way. They need to channel that grit that we talked about in the first hour, Tom Coughlin used to preach about, and just find a way to have more points at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if it's 7-3 today or it's 37-35. They just desperately have to get the W.
And if it's Flacco, and I know people remember the 311 yards and the 3 touchdowns in Cleveland last December, but he was with the number 1 defense in football last year. He won't have that today. He's got a Colts defense that is banged up and missing some key performers.
True.
So perhaps the offense can get started today.
Yeah, for the Jags, absolutely. I think there are some potential good matchups for them on the offense versus the Indianapolis defense if the weather allows.
Yeah, speaking of weather, game day weather brought to you by the St. John's River Water Management District. Florida's water, it's worth saving. It is 77 degrees in downtown Jacksonville at this moment with steady rain, and the rain is forecast to continue almost all the way up till kickoff, and then it's a 50-50 proposition throughout the course of the game. Again, game day weather brought to you by the St. John's River Water Management District. Florida's water, it's worth saving. So let's get to some of today's top stories. And we'll start with the head coach, Doug Peterson. The story that came out this week from a blogger somewhere in the blogger sphere that Doug Peterson had lost the Jaguars locker room. He was asked that as the first question of his news conference on Wednesday.
I talk to these guys every day. I see them every day. And no, I have not lost the locker room. I think these guys have done everything I've asked. They continue to play and practice hard and battle, and it's a good group. It's a good group. The right leaders in there, and they know what we need to do, and they're not making excuses for it, and I'm not going to make excuses, and we just got to go do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes out of Doug basically saying, look, hey, Press Taylor called a good game. Players need to make plays. He stressed that. Like, he feels like the opportunities have been there, and at times the players have not risen up to the challenge of that. But this is big boy football, Brian. You're allowed to have that critique if you're the head coach, if it's actually accurate, and the players know in that locker room how accurate that is. So I think from the outside looking in, it's easy to extrapolate that there are issues. There could be 1 or 2 guys. Again, we discussed that there's always a disgruntled guy in a locker room of 50 plus.
Sure. When you're 0-4, that's 100% guaranteed there'll be at least
doubt.
one.
At least one.
Well, Trevor Lawrence is not one of them, and he was asked how to deal with a hard week after a loss.
you have to be very thick-skinned, and you have to be just persistent. This is a tough sport. It's a tough game. You're gonna every week, especially when you're in a situation like this, you have to be very thick-skinned and have to keep your head down and keep working.
Well, look, he's done that, but you've got to get the results ultimately as well. He's got to play better. I don't doubt he's putting in the work, and I think he put in the work in the offseason, and we've all expected better. I'm sure he has expected better out of himself, but it's not only Trevor Lawrence that's been letting this team down. He was maybe the most glaring example of it.
Yeah, the overthrows. Yeah, the overthrow to Brian Thomas and the one to Christian Kirk are the two that just stand out to everybody who watched the game.
No question. But there have been issues in various games in big moments of not being able to get lined up properly, not being able to get the snap off, untimely penalties, key drops, defensive miscues, you name it, and the fact that they haven't been creating easy opportunities for their offense with their defense this year.
Something that stands out to me is that this locker room is still very much behind Trevor Lawrence. Went in this week looking, been around it as you have for 30 years. So kind of know what to look for, what to listen for. Cam Robinson was quickly to his quarterback's aid, protection as it is, and says this locker room has got the quarterback's back.
It's tough, obviously, and I've never even had to deal with a tenth of the pressure that Trevor's probably having to deal with. So, but I hope he finds his comfort in knowing that everybody in the building has his back. We'll do anything for him. We got all the confidence in the world in him, and we're not worried about Trevor. Like we'll, as a unit and as a team, we'll get it corrected. We're not worried about Trevor and needing to play better, and anybody in specific needing to play better. We'll get it right.
Well, good. Have us back out there on the field as well. And, continue to give him some clean pockets. And he's going to have to make those throws, but I think eventually he will.
What stands out is that Trevor, if you remember in 2021 when he was a rookie and everything went wrong in that season, he never doubted himself. He would come into news conferences and stand and say, listen, I know what I'm capable of. I know what kind of player I am. And this week, I heard that same guy back out there. And I think one of the reasons why is his teammates who get behind him like this. Because when you're the $55 million man and everyone points to your contract and you're still a young quarterback, it can be tough when things are really rolling downhill. So I think one of the reasons that I have encouragement today for the way that this offense could play is I think Trevor felt like he did back then. In other words, he knows what he's capable of. Now it's just time to go get it done.
Right, that's good, but deeds over words, man. Like you said, time to perform.
Linebacker Chad Muma started last week and will obviously be on the field today with the injury to Foye Oluokun, and he believes that this team is getting closer if they can just get one win, he told me. He believes the rest will take care of itself.
You first get that win, and it kind of starts a rolling effect, and then you go into the next week with that same mindset, same preparation, you get that energy rolling. I think that's one thing we were preaching last week is we got to celebrate the little things, and then the little things turn into big things. So I think, you celebrate, you obviously got to go week to week. You can't be looking at the whole season, we got to get all these wins. We got to go get this first win, and I think that starts this week.
Well, look, we know the math on how difficult it is to make the postseason after an 0-4 start.
The 92 Chargers, the only team that Stan Humphries.
No team after an 0-5 start has done it.
Right.
So you got to draw the line in the sand today, and hopefully Chad Muma's right that one will lead to more. You've got, on paper, a couple of winnable games going over to London.
In London.
This team can't afford to take anything for granted, though.
All right. Back to the quarterback for just a moment. Press Taylor spoke with the media on Thursday, was asked the question about the quarterback, and was there any thought at all to pulling in the reins on Trevor Lawrence and making the offense a little more precise?
We don't lose confidence in Trevor for missing a throw. It's going to happen here and there, and obviously some of the ones that we've missed the other day were potential big plays. But that doesn't deter us from anything. He has never shown anything to lack the confidence to let anything like that affect him to where if you saw that, I think if he came off and you saw the wide eyes or you saw something or he said something that made you nervous, then it's all right, we got to get this guy some layups. We got to get him back in the groove. We've never once felt that from Trevor. So as long as we continue to see confidence from himself, this team, this offense, this coaching, we have ultimate confidence in Trevor.
My guess is today, with the rain and the weather being what it is, you're going to pull the offense in some, and you're going to turn it over to Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. And Bigsby in particular, coming off his best game as a pro last week, playing with power. We'll see if he can be a mutterer.
Well, yeah, that, and, that's the way Gus Bradley wants to make you play as well as the defensive coordinator of the Colts. He wants to keep everything in front. He wants you to have those 12, 14-play drives where you continually execute on third down instead of just giving up that quick strike. So all that kind of works against that element of the Jaguars' offense today.
And obviously, ball security on a wet day is going to be a huge focus. This is a pretty good field when it gets wet. It drains about 10 inches an hour, but still, when it gets muddy, crazy things can happen. Well, Jags fans, if you can't make it to the game, we obviously get it. You could donate your Jaguars tickets to veteran tickets, military veterans in the community through the Jaguars ticketing and account page. So select more on the ticket page and select the game you'd like to donate. Vet Tix, tickets for troops. And let's return to the broadcast booth where Kai Stevens is standing by. Hello, Kai. How are you?
I'm good, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Good. Tell us, give us a weather report. We're indoors.
I haven't done weather in a while, but I can tell you it is raining. It is actually raining. Before it was a little light rain, I think, when we both came in this morning. But now it's a full-on rain, so it's going to be one of those days for the game, it looks like so far. So hopefully, as you mentioned, they get the running game going and maybe can force a turnover, something like that. Just be smart with the football.
Give me a sense of where you are on this team. You were in the locker room all week long. The big question was, had Doug Peterson lost them? What was your sense as you left the locker room?
I didn't get that sense from what I saw this week. Obviously, I think, Brian, you've been around teams like that too, where they have lost the locker room. It is completely a different vibe. I would say this is about as good as you're going to get of a vibe for a team that's 0-4. They really haven't. They really do all feel like they're together. I haven't seen a lot of, name-calling, finger-pointing. Like, even when they say it in certain ways, they don't necessarily call each other out, but you can feel when there's a discourse in a locker room, whether it's offense, defense, whatever it is. I haven't felt that. I really haven't. And they've turned the page as much as they can to focus on this game. And I'm hoping, I think we're all hoping at this point, because the Texans game, what I've been doing is looking at it a little singularly. The Texans game really was, yes, they lost, but there were good things to take from that. So if you don't pile in the rest of it, kind of go week to week as we try to do in football, there are a lot of good things to build off of.
All right, so what else is on your mind as we get closer to kickoff here on Throwback Sunday?
Just a little bit about the defense I thought was interesting. We heard from Ryan Nielsen earlier this week talking a little bit about, obviously, about the injuries that they've been dealing with, but then also kind of how they've been utilizing those substitutions on defense and how it's benefited them a little bit.
Simply say to our guys, our staff, done a great job of, hey, here's your reps. It's what you do with those reps that matter. We don't know when you're going to get in there. You could be on the field first, second, or third in the team period, but we evaluate what you do. It doesn't matter who it's against. It's just what that player does so he can take advantage of those reps. So if something like this happens, and same thing in the games, they have to earn, the right to play. They have to show, hey, they're doing the right things. You look at Chad and Ventrell. They played 10 snaps in Miami, and now here they are. They're starting. And so you prepare for that. You never know when it's going to come, and it might not come, but you just stay the course.
There are a number of good young players that we have seen on the field, Kai, and that plays back to what Ryan talked about from the first day of training camp, that he didn't believe in a depth chart, that he was going to give everybody an opportunity to earn their snaps.
Yeah, if you're looking at the bright side of this, we've seen some great steps being taken by some of those backups. Ventrell Miller, of course, starting his first game last week, did a great job. What Buster Brown has been able to do, we saw him step in last year. Of course, when Tyson Campbell was injured this year, he looks like the best corner out there for this team right now. So those are all good things that you look at, and hopefully your stars, when they get back to being stars, that will only help. Obviously, Foye Oluokun on IR right now. Looks like Josh Hines-Allen cleared concussion protocol this week, so that's good. We won't have to see what they were going to try to do with pass rush there, so that looks like a good opportunity. And hopefully everything can get put together this week.
All right, final 90 seconds. You've been with us now. This is your second season in Jacksonville. You covered, obviously, the Patriots for a long, long time in sports in Boston. Your thoughts on the throwback jerseys and the whole throwback concept for a franchise celebrating its 30th season?
I love it. I love the design, what they have out on the field right now. They have the old logo on. They put on the sides, they have the old logo with different decals up as well. I love the prowling Jaguar, the jumping, or prowling, I think is the correct term.
Prowler, yeah.
Prowler, yes. I love that design. I love the older teal with the gold accents on it. So for me, I'm very excited. I know it's a little damper on the parade because of the rain, but it's going to be great. And then I'm excited to see Tom Coughlin. Brian, I know you're doing the ceremony at halftime, so I'm excited to see that too.
I am excited to do it. Kai, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Are you going to find a way indoors today?
I think I'm going to sneak my way indoors, at least for a little bit. But hopefully I'll be doing post-game interview after the win.
Hopefully we are happy and you don't mind being a little bit damp.
I don't mind for that.
All right, that's Kai Stevens. Kai, have a great day. We're about 15 minutes away from inactives, folks, and we'll have that list for you as soon as it's published. But up next, CBS Sports play-by-play announcer Spiro Dides takes a look at the quarterback matchup in Week 5. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for the Jaguars and the Colts. Throwback Sunday at EverBank Stadium. Tom Coughlin going into the pride of the Jaguars at halftime. And if you look around, you're going to find a lot of familiar faces and names as the Jaguars legends are all on hand for this throwback celebration in Jacksonville. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show, and you're listening on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Brooks Rehabilitation is proud to be the official rehabilitation partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are here for them, and we are here for you. Ranked #1 physical rehabilitation hospital in Florida by U.S. News and World Report, our playbook is individualized treatment and exceptional care to get you back to living your life. Brooks has cutting-edge technology and therapy solutions in every care setting, treating sports injury, orthopedics, brain, spinal injuries, and more. Go beyond your expectations with Brooks Rehabilitation.
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at EverBank Stadium because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 70 years of authentic Southern Pit Barbecue. We are the local barbecue joint in BBQval for generations of people in Jacksonville. Go to bonosbarbecue.com to learn more or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Want to cruise down an open road in high-performance style? Visit jackscorvettegiveaway.com for a chance to win the ride of your dreams. A brand new 2024 Corvette Stingray Coupe. With its sleek design and cutting-edge technology, this vehicle is built for speed and luxury. So what are you waiting for? Enter to win at jackscorvettegiveaway.com today. No purchase necessary. Open only to legal residents of the states of Georgia and Florida. 18 years of age and older. Some restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. Ends 11/15/24. For entry information and official rules, visit gotoeventlink.com/rules. Feeling hungry, Jaguars fans? Fuel your Duval energy with a delicious Stallmeyer all-beef hot dog on game day as you support your Jacksonville Jaguars. Whether you're at the game or at home, it's not game day without a Stallmeyer all-beef hot dog. Made in Florida, Stallmeyer all-beef hot dogs will fuel your energy to help bring on a victory for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Stallmeyer all-beef hot dogs are available at your local Publix supermarkets. Don't feel hungry, Jaguars fans. Fuel your energy with the official hot dog of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Stallmeyer. Touchdown at Jaguars away games when you fly nonstop from Jacksonville International Airport. Join the Jaguars in Miami and Houston. Watch them win in Philly, Detroit, Nashville, and Las Vegas. All the other Jaguars games are just one short connection away. And if airport parking has you stressed, be sure to visit the Jax Airport website before traveling to the terminal. On it, you'll find information about the status of on-airport parking in real time. See if your favorite areas are available or if you need to call an audible. Visit flyjax.com for more information.
And welcome back inside the Hyundai Studios in the Miller Electric Center. Brian Sexton with Mike Dempsey on the Publix Tailgate Show. A little less than 2 hours until Week 5 kickoff. The Jaguars and the Colts on Throwback Sunday. But obviously, while we're focused on that, the rest of the league is already in action in London.
Yeah, the Sunday slate's underway. Minnesota leading the New York Jets 17-7. Really, the Minnesota defense leading the way here, holding New York to 99 yards in the first half. They got a defensive score. Andrew Van Ginkel with a 63-yard interception, return touchdown, and a 2-yard rush from C.J. Ham. Aaron Jones, their starting tailback, left the game due to an injury, did not return. We'll see if he's able to come back out in the second half as the Vikings will have the ball. Alan Lazard caught a touchdown from Aaron Rodgers. Late in the half, Rodgers has been picked off twice, and that's the lone score for the Jets today.
Sam Darnold back in the game. I know he was injured in the first half.
He left briefly. Nick Mullins came in for a play or two, and Darnold's been back since. He's been sacked a number of times by the Jets defense as well. So 17-7 just kicked off. And the Vikings will have the ball to open up the third quarter at their 30-yard line. And with the Jags, of course, hosting the Colts this afternoon, there's only one other AFC South team in action today. The 3-1 Houston Texans host the 3-1 Buffalo Bills. Houston will be without starting running back Joe Mixon once again against the Bills' run defense that was dominated by the Ravens last week. Brian, we saw Derrick Henry go for 199 yards. Tank Dell also back in Houston's lineup after a multi-week absence. Buffalo without their leading wide receiver Khalil Shakir today, missing the game with an ankle injury.
I thought last week Joe Mixon's absence gave the Jaguars a real opportunity to get after the quarterback. He was a great signing, I thought, for the Texans because it's that balance between the young quarterback and the power running game. I wonder how they'll do today in Buffalo without having that.
Yeah, Jags got close on a number of occasions. Couldn't close the deal. Had their hands on C.J. Stroud. We'll see if Buffalo's pass rush has any more luck in that department. The 1-3 Tennessee Titans, by the way, on their bye, coming off their first win of the season on Monday night against Miami. The Green Bay Packers have suspended wide receiver Romeo Doubs a game for conduct detrimental to the team. Doubs is going to miss today's game versus the Rams. Packers GM Bryden Gutekunst said of Doubs, quote, unfortunately, you had to make the difficult decision to suspend Romeo for this week's game. His decisions and actions during the week negatively impacted the team and required us to take this action. Doubs' suspension comes after the wideout missed the last two practices with what the team called personal reasons. He reportedly has been unhappy with his role in the offense. Christian Watson got hurt last week, but it was Dontavian Wicks coming off the bench to dominate fourth-quarter targets, and Doubs, I guess, not happy. So I guess you don't have to be a really good receiver in the NFL to be a diva at this point. Just anybody who is not happy with how many balls are coming their way.
Well, and there's probably more of them than are not. I'll say this. The Packers have always been a franchise that plays it old school. It's willing to take that tough step and make sure a guy understands where the line is.
Of course, former Packer wide receiver Devontae Adams has been all over the news. Trade talks surrounding the current Raider expected to intensify this week after the star wide receiver misses his second straight game today with a hamstring injury. I use the air quotes on that one, in the wake of a trade request that he made to Las Vegas. Adams is said to prefer a reunion with quarterback Aaron Rodgers in New York, but he doesn't have a no-trade clause, and Las Vegas is said to be willing to take the top offer they get, so he can't necessarily steer himself exactly where he wants to go.
Is that, air quotes, hamstring injury kind of like a back injury?
To me, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's awfully convenient that the hamstring popped up at the same time that the trade request came in. The Raiders reportedly seeking a package that includes at least the second-round pick plus more. A lot of NFL observers feel they'll have to settle for less than that. Eventually, it hasn't been a robust market yet, but the trade deadline is not until November 5th. And then finally, Rashee Rice, the Kansas City Chiefs, will undergo an arthroscopic procedure this week to determine the severity of the damage to his right knee. We saw this go down last week. Rice went on injured reserve following a hit he received from his own quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, who was trying to make a tackle after an interception versus the Chargers last Sunday. Rice is going to miss a minimum of 4 games going on IR. The Chiefs are hopeful that his ACL remains intact. They haven't really been able to get good imaging on it because of the swelling in there, but that's the hope. So at the extreme short end, you're talking about 4 to 6 weeks. On the longer end, he's done for the year.
All right, there's your look around the National Football League on the first Sunday of October. Well, Spiro Dides has the play-by-play of today's game on CBS Sports. And with the 0-4 start, there are plenty of questions around the Jaguars entering Week 5. Here's Dides' takeaways from the post-game press conference after last week's loss in Houston.
I saw a coach who was tired. I saw a coach who was uncharacteristically stressed with this situation. You know, Doug has always come across as someone who's even-keeled, laid back, a guy who, you know, when the bullets start flying, look, he played the toughest position in sports for years. You know, he knows what chaos feels like. But I saw a guy up there who, you know, maybe he's had enough of some of these questions, you know, who's calling the plays and all that stuff. Now, there's this report out this week that maybe the locker room is not where you want it to be, and maybe there's some second guessing. Maybe there's some guys that have tuned out a little bit. That when I start to hear that stuff, that starts to become a little concerning. So now can Doug and his staff get their arms around this thing before it spirals out of control? Because now, you're in 0-4 territory. If you look at the history of the league, very few teams, maybe I have to check this week to see if one team have got into the playoffs. Okay, so if there's a risk of losing a season and losing a locker room this early, barely a month into the season, you're starting to enter some dangerous waters. So this is a monster game for this club this week. I thought they performed well last week, all things considered, to have a chance to win down there in Houston. But boy, you lose this week and things could get ugly there quickly.
1992 San Diego Chargers, the only 0-4 team to make the playoffs. Bobby Ross, I think, was the head coach of that team. Man. Been a while.
Long time. That's a long time ago. Yeah,
it certainly is. The Indianapolis Colts 2-2. They've got quarterback questions right now. Anthony Richardson, surprise, is injured again. We'll see his status for this week. But Joe Flacco's a guy who's played for 18 years and carved this Jaguars team up last year in Cleveland. So, where are the Colts right now? 2-2. You are what you are, and there are a lot of questions in Indy, but they're 2 games better than the Jags.
Yeah, we actually had their game against the Steelers last week. Joe Flacco, the guy is just unbelievable. He's I think he's 57 years old, and he just keeps coming in and carving teams up. It was wild. It really was. To come in, didn't skip a beat. Their offense changed considerably, obviously, much different style quarterback than Anthony Richardson. Couple of things. Anthony Richardson now, I think they're getting to the point now. He's played 8 career games in the NFL, and he's finished 4 of them. And all of his injuries have come on design runs. So I think they're getting to a point now where they gotta sit and really think about how they're going to handle Anthony Richardson when they play. Shane Steichen's play calling, all of those things that I think they have to consider, because when he's played, the few games that he has played, you can clearly see the talent. I mean, this kid is a potentially elite quarterback, obviously dual threat. Everyone talks about his legs. He's got a cannon of an arm, and he's got pretty good accuracy. I know he's made some bad decisions with some pretty bad picks the first part of this season, but it's all there for him. He's got the tools. They just have to figure out, how are we going to protect this kid when he plays? Number 2, how does the offense now change, not only with Flacco, but potentially Jonathan Taylor's status? Because, a big part of what made Jonathan Taylor so lethal, everyone knows he's arguably the best running back in the NFL, but when you add him in an offensive backfield with AR, it puts the defense in a really tough predicament. When Richardson left the game last week, Pittsburgh was able to really lock in on the box and lock in on Jonathan Taylor, and it really took away Indianapolis's running game. So that'll be interesting to see this week if AR is out and Jonathan Taylor can play. But, this is a tough week, I think, for Jacksonville's defense. How do you prepare? You don't know which of these guys are playing. Are they both out? Is one in? Is the other out? Flacco drastically changes who they are offensively. But I'll say this, if it is Flacco, this is not going to be a walk in the park for Jacksonville's defense. I mean, he can clearly still play, and he adds an element that they don't have when Anthony Richardson's out there.
And the Jaguars have had some pass rush issues for guys who don't move around and run into pressure. I mean, that's what Anthony Richardson might do. Defensively, what's the strength of the Colts defense?
Well, the strength is, one of them is your old buddy, Gus Bradley. You look at how they started the first 2 weeks of the season, and they gave up, in week 2 at Green Bay, they gave up 261 yards on the ground. We visit with Gus. He's one of our all-time favorite people. He's as positive a coach as I've ever been around in the NFL, and he called the first half in Green Bay embarrassing. I've never heard Gus talk about his team so negatively before. And he said, we had to build them back up spiritually after that game. I mean, they were so broken, and their confidence was so shaken. And to think that in less than 2 weeks, they went out and played the way they did last week. They were phenomenal against the Pittsburgh offense that has been really good with Justin Fields and very efficient. They were incredible last week, considering the fact that they lost 2 more starters. Kenny Moore was out last week. Kwity Paye went down. They didn't have him. They've already been without DeForest Buckner, Samson Ebukam, who led them in sacks last year. So all those things considered, to hold it together the way they did. Jalen Jones was phenomenal. Some of these young corners that, we didn't know much about, to be honest, going into the season, they were flying all over the place. And so I think it's a testament to Gus and his defensive staff, what they've been able to do. And as they get healthier, I think there's a potential for this defense to be, not just maybe good, but I think potentially really good.
All right, real quick, power rankings, AFC South. What you got? I know who's last. But.
Man, obviously Houston at the top. Tennessee, a little bit of an unknown. I mean, they looked a little bit better with their Monday night win, but obviously they are still figuring some things out. Indianapolis, I guess, number 2 with potentially what they can be. And if Jacksonville figures it out, JP, I mean, who knows? Maybe they don't make the playoffs, but maybe they make life miserable for some of their friends in that division. So, man, it's a tough division. Every time we think the AFC South is maybe on the way up, some of these teams kind of have some issues. So we're all hoping they figure it out because, as you know, my buddy Adam Archuleta and I kind of live in the AFC South. So we're rooting for these teams to get into some smooth waters and to hopefully have a decent season.
Catch the full conversation with Spiro Dides of CBS Sports available on the official Jaguars podcast network. Up next, Inactives, plus a pregame Huddle Up podcast with Bucky Brooks and John Ogier. We're an hour and a half from the 1 o'clock kickoff for the Jaguars and Colts. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
For us, treating cancer is personal. We're Baptist MD Anderson Cancer Center, and we know that every patient is unique. So you'll have a plan created by world-renowned doctors and tailored to your needs. And everyone here will support you every step of the way, so you're physically, emotionally, and spiritually strong for the journey. Don't face cancer with anything less than the team at Baptist MD Anderson. Locations in downtown, Baptist South, and Clay. Visit BaptistMDAnderson.com.
When you show your home love with a natural gas water heater, it loves you right back with more cost-efficient, endless hot water.
Hon, hurry it up, please.
And right now, you'll love earning a cash rebate up to $700 when you install an energy-efficient natural gas water heater.
We're going to be late. Again.
What? Did you say something, hon?
To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
The power of a great team starts with the right equipment, specialized skills, and the training to win. That's why ASAP Dental Care and the Jaguars have the home team advantage. At ASAP Dental Care, we follow our playbook to perfection to exceed your expectations. Count on us to be there for you 7 days a week to deliver full-service dental care. Score a winning smile with ASAP Dental Care today.
The warm, buttery, and sweet aroma of freshly baked pretzels wafting through the air. No, ladies and gentlemen, you're not imagining it. EverBank Stadium is now home to Annie Ann's iconic pretzels. Jags fans can get a hot and handmade pretzel to enjoy during the game. Your nose knows. Follow it to the nearest Annie Ann's. Annie Ann's. Let's get twisted.
Chelsea here. Another month and another high utility bill. Those old windows and doors might be the culprit, letting valuable energy escape. At Renewal by Anderson, our energy-efficient windows and doors have the latest advanced technology, keeping your home comfortable all year round. Renewal by Anderson has a limited-time offer. Buy 4 windows and/or patio doors and get the 5th one free. Plus, enjoy 0 money down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for 12 months. Some restrictions apply. Visit bestwindowsflorida.com for all the details. License number CGC 1527613.
Brian and Mike back with you from the Hyundai Studios for the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Jaguars and Colts meet on Throwback Sunday here at EverBank Stadium. Week 5, a 1 o'clock kickoff. And today's game is presented by Baptist Health. changing healthcare for good. Speaking of health, inactives. A couple of note for the Jaguars. Evan Ingram's still not back. The thought is perhaps next week he will be ready to go. He will travel to London. Yasir Abdullah, who has played a role on both special teams, and with the linebacking depth being thinned out by injuries, is inactive today. Also, Daniel Thomas, the safety who is a special team standout, will not go today.
All right, for the Colts, 5 starters out for them today, and some we knew about. Jonathan Taylor will not be suiting up. Their starting running back, Anthony Richardson, officially ruled out for the game, so it'll be Joe Flacco starting at quarterback. He will not have his center, Ryan Kelly, with him. Defensively, Kwity Paye, one of their starting rush ends, and Kenny Moore, one of their starting corners, are both out today. And backup wide receiver Anthony Gould and backup offensive lineman Blake Freeland fill out that list.
All right, those are your inactives. And time now to welcome in Jaguars radio field analyst Bucky Brooks, plus Jaguars.com senior writer John Ozier for a pregame huddle up. Fellas, how are you?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good.
Bucky's here. Bucky, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Good.
How we doing?
Hey, let's start with the big topic today, and obviously that's the locker room. It was the question all week long. Bucky, you're in and out of locker rooms. John, you've been in this one all week. Your thoughts on where this team is behind Doug Peterson?
Oh, I mean, I think, look, the team still believes in the coach. I think when you look at all the interaction, it suggests that the head coach still has the attention of the team. But I think anytime you lose, the team loses a little confidence. And so when you go all the way back to last year, the number of games that the team has lost, they're just fragile in terms of their in-game confidence and their belief. And what this team really needs, they really need a fast start with things to go their way so they can kind of re-energize and kind of continue to believe in the program and the process that he's put in place.
Yeah, I think the locker room story this week was one of those things that, when you're 0-4, people are going to contact people on your team and ask if there's still belief in the head coach. Did one or two guys intimate something? I have no idea. I do think there is an 0-something where coaches do lose the locker room. But I don't think Doug's lost it at 0-4. I didn't get that vibe at all from the team. I didn't feel like the funny thing was last week, guys, that didn't look like a team playing the Texans that had lost direction. It didn't feel like it was playing for themselves, which is what I look for when a team has sort of lost it. So, no, I don't think that's the case. But I'm with Buck. A win goes a long way toward calming those waters and silencing those stories.
Now, we got a few coaches that used to be in this locker room back with us today. Obviously, Tom Coughlin going in the pride of the Jaguars, but Gus Bradley brings that cover 2, cover 3 defense, guys, where he wants to keep everything in front. With the weather conditions, with that style of defense, is this a game that the Jags have to rely heavily on the ground game?
Well, I mean, I think you always want to attack the run because what that does is it begins to dictate the coverage that you'll see on the outside. You also want to run against Gus Bradley because you want to try and stay in manageable situations. If you get in long yardage situations, it can be tough for the quarterback because then it's about can he be patient and disciplined enough to take the check down and the underneath things against a defense that's taking away the deep ball. This is one where Trevor Lawrence has to be on his game when it comes to just being patient, taking what the defense allows, and then when you get an opportunity, you got to cash in on that opportunity.
Yeah, I think they want to run well. I just don't believe this is a team and an offense that is going to be able to turn around and say, okay, we're handing the ball to the running back 5 or 6 straight times. I think they will still have to have the short passing game. I think what Bucky just said is exactly right. It's a game where Trevor Lawrence has to be really precise in short passes, in passes out of the backfield. That's what they'll do to sort of supplement the running game a little bit. That will be part of the running game. So I think that's what they want to do. I just don't see this as a team that can just turn around and think you're going to drive you off the ball with 7 passes. With 7 runs on an 8-play, 80-yard drive.
It's Trevor's 25th birthday. So,
good.
So the question I have is, can he flip the switch? I mean, he wasn't very precise last week, as we know, missing some open shots. Do you suppose that in a week's time he can flip that and play precise on a wet day?
Yeah, I think he can because I look at last week and, if you complete 2 passes, that's a completely different narrative. So I don't think he's that far off. If you're asking me, do I know or feel confident that he's going to complete that 35-yard pass that he's been missing, I think the only way to know is to see it. He certainly can. Bucky, I don't know if we can predict if he will.
No, but I think this defense and the team that he's playing is the perfect remedy for something that ails him. One, they're going to force him to play a dink and dunk small ball game. Two, by doing that, it's like being on the basketball court and taking form shots. Hit a couple layups, then you move to your mid-range before you start shooting three-pointers. He needs to see the ball hit the hands of his receivers 7-8 times in a row to feel like he's in rhythm, and then it becomes a lot easier to hit those shots. Because he's been so inconsistent, completion rate right around 53, 54%, it's hard to say, hey, I'm confident that I'm going to make this shot because he hasn't made a lot of them. If he can just get a rhythm, hit a few layups early, I think the deep ball will eventually come and it'll be easier for him to connect on.
Historically, he's been good against this defense, guys.
Oh, he has. And the Jags defense was not so good against the quarterback they're going up against when they saw him last year in Joe Flacco. They get him for the second time in less than a full calendar year. Guys, no Jonathan Taylor, no Anthony Richardson. What do you expect the Colts' offensive game plan to look like today?
Well, I think they're going to put it in the hands of the veteran. They're going to let Joe Flacco do it. But here's what I would say is the difference between last year and this year. Last year, if you go back and think about that Cleveland game, there were a lot of communication issues, a lot of busts, a lot of guys running free through zones. We haven't seen that as much with this iteration of the defense. It's simple. Everyone knows exactly what to do. And for the most part, with the exception of a poor performance against Buffalo, they've been on point. I don't think Joe Flacco will have as much success against this unit because, I'll be honest, I think it's a better coach, a more detailed unit, and that's going to give him problems more so than it did last year.
Yeah, that Cleveland game last year was one of the stranger, you guys remember it, it was as close to absolutely handing a team 14, 17 points as you could possibly come. This defense hasn't done that. It had the bad game against Buffalo, but it was getting out-schemed a little bit and out-speeded on the edges, if you will. I don't think that'll happen today. Look, this is a game on paper with matchups they ought to win, the Jags. The problem is they figured out a way to lose a couple this year, so you've kind of lost your trust that they'll take advantage of matchups. But this is a game they ought to win if they don't give it away.
We have 2 minutes, so we can't get too in-depth into the X and O here, but both of you, how do you fix the pass rush? Is there something you can do structurally, or is it just guys winning, Buck?
Guys got to win. You can do all the stunts and games
right?
and all the other stuff, but you have to be able to win. The coverage on the back end has been solid enough where you've had extra time to get to the quarterback. We just haven't gotten to the quarterback. And so some of that is a player problem. You have to win your one-on-one battles. The job of the defensive coordinator is to create one-on-one matchups, and then the players have to win. And I know everyone bristled at the notion of Doug saying, hey, man, players have to execute. But that's what it's about. The players have to win their one-on-one battles. No coach can create a free run to the quarterback consistently. They have to win up front. So it's on the big guys up front to win the matchup.
Yeah, they might bring a little pressure, but that's just not what this scheme is built to do. And I don't think they're at the point yet where they feel like they have to. We thought coming into the season, the guys like Eric Armstead and Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker, I said it a million times in the offseason, if this defense is going to be elite, it's built around that sort of disruption and pressure. They haven't gotten it yet, but they need to today.
And, Bucky, just a thought from you, since we haven't heard from you this week on Tom Coughlin going into the pride of the Jaguars. You were here during that golden season in 1996. Share a thought.
Look, it's great to see Coach Coughlin go in. So much of what I take to my high school team comes from Coach Coughlin when it comes to discipline, toughness, attention to detail, all of those things. And you go back and you look at this franchise. When this franchise has been great, those tenets have been followed. There's a level of toughness that the team has to play with. They're disciplined because they don't beat themselves, and the effort and the energy always shows up while they're paying attention to detail. Hopefully, this current version of the Jaguars will pay Coach back today with a great performance that shows all of those things.
All right, John Ozier, Bucky Brooks, appreciate you. Enjoy the broadcast today. Enjoy your afternoon. And we are now inside 20 minutes from Jaguars Radio Network coverage with countdown to kickoff starting at noon Eastern. Up next, a fantasy forecast, and Frank Frangie joins us from the broadcast booth. The Jags and Colts coming up in Week 5 action. It's Throwback Sunday here at EverBank Stadium. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips. Delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages. And you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Facing cancer takes a lot of determination, strength, and support. And you'll get it all at Baptist MD Anderson Cancer Center. Determination from world-renowned doctors, giving you specialized treatment with cutting-edge technology and research. Strength and support from a dedicated team, caring for you completely, during and after treatment. Don't face cancer with anything less than the team at Baptist MD Anderson. Appointments available at baptistmdanderson.com.
Hey Jags fans, Extreme isn't always about heat, it's about flavor. And 505 knows flavor. So wake up those sleepy taste buds with 505's new lineup of premium craft salsa. Powered by the bud-kicking boldness of fire-roasted Hatch Valley chilies, 505 sauces are more than enough to bulk up any simple spread. Ignite your sense of boldness with 505's all-new assortment of fiercely fiery flavors featuring 505's new black bean and corn craft salsa. And of course, 505's award-winning flagship flavor, Southwestern style. UNF is a top public university committed to serving the region, a place where visionary minds come together to create effective solutions. With more than 70% of their graduates working in the area, UNF is North Florida's university, offering 100-plus majors, affordable tuition, and programs in high-demand fields. Soar into your future at UNF. Visit unf.edu to learn more.
Big Number 1 Duval Ford is trusted by Duval families, Duval businesses, and law enforcement across Florida. We are Jacksonville's largest Ford dealer by Ford sales, with the biggest service facility to keep everything in your driveway on the road. Shop Big Number 1 Duval Ford on Cassett Avenue for our low prices and nationally recognized service first experience. Big Number 1 Duval Ford, proudly serving Duval since 1916.
Daly's Dash is not only your Jaguars game day stop, but a great place to grab a meal any day of the week. To honor the Jags and the fans, we've crafted the Duval Sub. The Duval comes with freshly sliced turkey ham, melted cheddar and habanero jack cheese, topped with crisp lettuce, fresh tomatoes, and a double portion of our secret sauce, all served on a fresh roll. Come by your local's Daly's Dash today to get your delicious Duval Sub. Daly's is the official convenience store sponsor of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Welcome back inside the Hyundai Studios at the Miller Electric Center for more of the Publix Tailgate Show. Brian Sexton, Mike Dempsey with you. The Jaguars and Colts on a Throwback Sunday. Throwback uniforms, Jaguars legends in attendance, and of course at halftime, Tom Coughlin will go into the pride of the Jaguars here at EverBank. Kickoff set for just after 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Today's game brought to you by Baptist Health, changing healthcare for good. And let's get right into the sweet spot with Mike Dempsey. Here's a fantasy forecast.
Yeah, right now we've got one game ongoing. Not a big fantasy productive game. Justin Jefferson leads the way with 61 receiving yards on 4 catches for Minnesota as they're up 17-7 on the New York Jets. Garrett Wilson's caught 7 for 51 for the Jets. Not much going with the running game. Aaron Jones got hurt in the first half. He will not return to action today, so Ty Chandler will be the man the rest of the way. The inactives rolling in this morning, and we're seeing a lot of guys getting cleared to play. Miami at New England. Raheem Mostert is back. He's missed the last several games due to a chest injury. Antonio Gibson will start for the New England Patriots today as Gerard Mayo, the head coach, came out and said that Ramondre Stevenson is not going to get the start because of his fumbling issues. Gibson's had them himself in the past, so we'll see if he's able to hang on to the football. And the Dolphins will get the debut of Odell Beckham Jr. in a Miami uniform today as well. Cleveland at Washington. David Njoku is active, although there are reports that he'll have a limited role. The tight end for Cleveland's missed the last several several games. Brian Robinson, coming off a 100-yard game last week, is active for the Washington Commanders. Buffalo at Houston. You're going to have Cam Akers getting another start for the Texans. Both Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce have been ruled out for the game today. And Khalil Shakir, the leading receiver for Buffalo so far this season, is out with an ankle injury. Later on this afternoon, Vegas at Denver. Zamir White will not play. Alexander Madison, who's outplayed him anyway, will get the start for the Raiders. Arizona taking on San Francisco this afternoon, Brian. George Kittle is questionable, as is Trey McBride. The two tight ends, though, according to reports this morning, both expected to be able to give it a go this afternoon. Green Bay is in Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Christian Watson has been ruled out. Romeo Doubs suspended for a game. So Dontavian Wicks, if you've got him on your bench, get him in your lineup. Had a monster game coming off the bench in the fourth quarter last week, hooking up with Jordan Love. The Giants at Seattle today. Malik Neighbors won't play. He's in the concussion protocol. Devin Singletary doubtful to go for the Giants. Tyrone Tracy, probably the guy who'll get the start at tailback. And Wan'Dale Robinson probably in line for double-digit targets like he got last week. And finally tonight, Brandon Cooks has been placed on IR by the Dallas Cowboys, and Jalen Tolbert's been getting a decent amount of targets as the number 2 to CeeDee Lamb. So in a pinch, you might look that way in case of emergency.
Okay. How many fantasy football teams will you be monitoring on a Sunday?
Like 15.
Okay. And how do you do it with one screen?
You just know who's on the different teams.
You've got one screen in front of you. I would figure that would be something that you would need a whole lot more of.
I know where
Your
Aaron
fantasy
Jones
empire.
is playing for me, unfortunately. I know I don't have a whole lot of Aaron Rodgers going. I can just look at it and tell you I have Justin Jefferson in this league or that league, and I don't know. It's one of those things you just get used to doing.
Yeah, you, like me, you have a head full of information. And
useless.
Well, I was going to use the word useless to describe mine, not necessarily yours. Well, we're about 10 minutes away from Countdown to Kickoff on the Jaguars Radio Network, presented by the University of Florida, the #1 university in the U.S. News and World Report's #1 state for education. We welcome in now the man who will call the game this afternoon, Frank Frangie. Hello, Frank. How are you?
Brian, I'm doing well. How are you doing, and how's Mike? And look, I know all about useless information. I got a head full of it, Brian. I get it. So,
we're sportscasters. It's what we do.
Yes, exactly what we do. But it's a beautiful day, Brian, and I love it out here. I love the way these end zones look with the shield and the AFC logo and the throwback uniforms, and a special day for a special man, Tom Coughlin. So I'm excited about it for sure.
Why don't you share a thought on Tom? Obviously, you've been in Jacksonville since the team was awarded your whole life. Tell me something, a moment, something that stands out to you about TC.
You know, probably what jumps off the page for me, Brian, and he's been such a great coach here, is what he has done in the community. I can still remember when he was with the Giants. Now, this is after he wasn't here anymore. We talked. We had him on the show we do the Tom Coughlin J-Fun Radiothon at our radio station. Mike knows all about that. We've done it since we started. And I can remember the sincerity in his voice, Brian, when he talked about how important that is to him and how important it's been in Jacksonville and to change the lives and affect the lives of families in Jacksonville. And I've never forgotten that. It kind of inspired me to do a charity as well, and I've told him that. So he's a great coach. He does things the right way. He's organized. He means so much to this franchise, all he did here. But what he does for the community, I think, jumps off the page, Brian, for me even more. And he's a special man, dude. He really is, and I'm so glad he's being honored.
And Tom Coughlin, Frank, knew the ups and downs early on with this team and had to navigate those. And some downs right now for Doug Peterson. What does he need to do? Is it just staying the same, or is there something he can do to try to get this team kind of shaken up a little bit and on track?
You know, Mike, I think more than X's and O's, if he can get them to play loose and free and easy, I think – listen, I don't think it's a bad team. They've been an eyelash from winning 2 of those games, man. All 3 of the 4 losses have come down to a play at the end of the game or in the last 20 seconds. They've lost 3 games, not counting the Bills. They blew them out. But they've lost the other 3 games by a total of 12 points. But the more you lose, I heard Bucky say it earlier, and I agree with him, the more you lose, the less confidence you have and the less conviction you have that you'll make the play. I think go play like you're playing in your backyard. If Doug can get them to relax and play free and easy, and Trevor particularly, not play like the weight of the world is on his shoulders. Mike, I think it's that more than anything it is from an X's and O's standpoint. Go be who you were in camp. Go be who you were in the preseason. Be who you were when we've had these good stretches under him. If you can get him to do that, I think that's the most important thing. I really do.
Give us a guy on each side of the ball that you think could be a difference maker today, Frank.
I think they've got to run it today, Brian. I do. So I'm going to take both running backs if I can. Tank Bigsby, who I think will get a lot of carries, and Travis Etienne. I think how those guys play offensively is a big part of it. And defensively, I'm taking the chalk here, Brian, but you got to get to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is very good if you don't move him off his spot. So Josh Hines, Allen, and Trayvon Walker, who were so good a year ago, I think they're the key to the game defensively. The Jags' back end has played pretty well. Ventrell Miller, as a linebacker, played so well last week. Monteric Brown coming in for Tyson Campbell has been one of the bright spots of this whole season. So I think the back end, Brian, has played well. They got to get to the passer, man. They've got to get him off his spot. Those edges have to play well. So give me the 2 edges and the 2 running backs. I think for the Jaguars, in my mind, those 4 guys might be the key to the game.
Frank, you cannot get on a winning streak without getting that first one. And there's a hope that if the Jags can just break through, that they can go to London where they've had success and maybe come back 3-4. Do you sense that this group is still talented enough that that's what it will take? Just a spark in the right direction could get them rolling.
Mike, I do. Now, look, I'm glasses half full guy. I've always been that guy. But, I thought all along it was a pretty good roster. My mind hasn't changed on that. It might not be quite where I thought it was, but I still think that. But it's like the shooter in basketball, Mike. When he's missing 3-pointers and missing 3-pointers, coach says, go make a few layups just so you can see it go through the hoop. I know that's a cliche, but I think that's where these guys are. I think if they can feel one today, look, they've played four teams so far that had double-digit wins and were in the playoffs last year. Regardless of what they are this year, they've played 4 teams that had double-digit wins and were in the playoffs last year, and four quarterbacks who've had a bunch of Pro Bowls and wins. Well, now they play 3 teams that aren't that. A veteran quarterback today and then 2 young quarterbacks, 3 teams that were not in the playoffs a year ago. So the schedule changes a little bit. I think the Jags still have a good team. I really do believe that, Mike. Find a way to win this one and see what happens.
Sorry, let me stick with the glass half full for just a moment. And football people are going to hate this because they're so one game at a time. But you're talking about an 0-4 football team, Frank, that a lot of people are willing to write off and say playoffs aren't a possibility, season's out. Can you imagine now, and we're imagining, a win today and then you go and do what you did last year when you went to London 1-2 and came home 3-2? What if you come home 3-4? It sets up tough schedule, Packers, Eagles, Vikings, but you really can get some ground with a win here today.
Brian, I completely agree with you. Maybe the football people don't like it, but I'm on the same page you are on this one, man. I think that can happen. We've seen it before. I mean, the Jags were 3-7 2 years ago, and then went on an incredible winning streak. To your point, they were 1-2 last year and started winning 1-6 to the next 7. The league's like that, and the Jags have been like that in the last 2 years. But to Mike's point, Brian, it's got to start today. If you don't win this one, then it's way harder. It's harder to make yourself believe. So this is a critically important game for the Jaguars.
Doug Peterson stuck his head in here one day this week and was telling a story about how when he was in Kansas City with Andy Reid, they started 1-5 and then went on a winning streak and made the playoffs. So that's his mindset. It's yours. It's mine. We'll see if the Jaguars can get it done today. Frank, thanks so much. Have a good call.
Okay, fellas. Thank you.
All right. That's Frank Frangie. Well, up next, Jaguars radio network coverage and countdown to kickoff. You'll have the top stories of the day, obviously, involving Tom Coughlin and his induction into the pride of the Jaguars. We'll hear from pride of the Jaguars running back Fred Taylor. And then the final word before kickoff, my conversation with Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson. The Jaguars and the Colts in Week 5 throwback action, wearing the golden era uniforms that so many people couldn't wait to see on a rainy day. Remember those teal jerseys when they would get wet? Man, they would be a deep shade of teal.
No doubt, but we're looking forward to it.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for listening to the Publix Tailgate Show here on Jaguars Radio. Our network coverage begins in just moments as the Jaguars and the Colts get set for Week 5 action here at EverBank Stadium.